Take two.
All right, what up, what up, peeps? So in this podcast, we have Colton Daly from Daily Motivation.
Hey.
And in this podcast, he talks about using tragedy for positivity and morphing motivation into action.
Yes, and on top of that, he also talks about how nothing in this life happens by chance. There's always a reason behind that. Mm-hmm. And also we have a surprise guest from our lead pastor from Radiant Church, Aaron Burke. So super exciting that he just literally hopped in. And we're like, okay,
and drop some knowledge.
Just hop in this podcast real quick and drop some knowledge, some coconut fire. So check it out. We had a great time doing this podcast. Hope you guys enjoy. Peace. Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Roberto Guido.
And my name is Marissa Lewis.
And together we are
the Dos Cocos Locos.
And welcome to our podcast.
So our goal with this podcast is to drop as much coconut fire, which is our way of saying life/business knowledge bombs, for creatives that don't necessarily know much about life or business, through conversations with one another as well as with other fellow creatives and dope people.
Our story has a lot of twists and turns, but basically we started by selling coconuts at the beach, and now we have our own photography and videography business. And it's through these conversations that we were able to really learn how to navigate this thing called life. All right, so Colton, can you go ahead and tell everybody in one sentence, what do you do?
What do I do?
Yes.
In one sentence?
In one sentence. It could be buttons. It could be a run.
Okay. Wow. Well, first of all, I'm a life coach. And then to keep it in one sentence, I'm also a real estate broker.
Okay.
So I currently do both of those, balance my life like that to live a life where I'm my own boss and get to do something I love to do every day.
Awesome.
That's
respect,
cool.
bro. Respect. So how did you go ahead and become like real estate and life coaching? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, I went to college over on the East Coast. I went to FAU. I got a business degree there, and in my family, everyone has a real estate license. So my mother's been doing it 20 years. Brother, father, everyone's got the real estate license. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to take that route because everyone's been doing it. So it's something I can learn and grow from them and having their guidance to do that. Yeah. Plus, what an awesome opportunity to create a great career. Being on the East Coast at that time and houses, housing market's great. The houses are a lot of money, so I figured it'd be a great opportunity for me to make a living, make a money, while also being able to create be my own boss and not have a boss.
That's cool. Nice. So how did life coaching come about?
Wow, that's a great question because that was never in the picture.
Yeah.
Right? And that really goes into a long story, so it depends on how much time
we got time.
Oh, man. Okay, well, this is when we get personal, and this is really kind of how I found my purpose and how I got to that. So ultimately, as I was in college, throughout my family, my brother had an addiction to, drugs. Wonderful person, strong warrior person, but ended up falling down that cycle because there was a massive epidemic in our hometown. Okay. And so what had happened was, in my senior year of college, as I struggled through that in high school and everything like that, my senior year of college, I came home at 22 years old, and my brother ended up passing away from an overdose from the drugs, right? And then during this whole time, my father had cancer at the same time, had bladder cancer. So 6 months later, my father passed away as well. So being 22 years old, thinking my life was going to be a real estate agent on the East Coast, having a girlfriend over there, thinking my whole life was planned, and that everything would be held down over here. All of that was destroyed.
Wow.
Right? So what's crazy about that is being 22 years old and coming home to take care of your mother and all of a sudden being like, now what do I do? Right? Because obviously my plans don't matter. And there was a moment there I was like, all right, God, what do you want?
Yeah, what is happening? Yeah.
What is happening? Right? Because obviously my plans are all squashed now. So just show me what you want and I'll do that. But cool. Through those years of having to go through those trials and tribulations, I had to learn how to be strong. And how to overcome the adversity and how to motivate myself when things were so hard and I couldn't get myself out of bed. And one of the ways I did that was by listening to motivational speakers. I would listen to, Tony Robbins and Eric Thomas and Les Brown and Inky Johnson and Zig Ziglar. I can just keep going forever. Zig Ziglar, some old timers, him and Jim Rohn, right?
Yes.
And what's so amazing about all these people is all of them had to overcome adversity. And all of them went through terrible, traumatic events in their life and went through struggles. Tony Robbins, having 5-6 fathers, being beaten by, his mother and getting liquid soap poured down his throat, and having to come through that and look where he is today. Yeah. Inky Johnson, an underdog going through college, getting injured, becoming paralyzed, losing his arm. Wow. Was planning to go to the NFL. Wow. The supportive family, he's been poor his whole life, and then becoming a motivational speaker that's impacting the world through that way. So being able to hear such people overcome such adversity inspired me and gave me hope. But also, these are just, success leaves clues. These are just some of the wisest people to like ever walk the planet.
Yeah.
And to be able to hear their words and their wisdom and their knowledge, I just soaked that up, and it became a passion for me and inspired and motivated me every day.
That's awesome.
And so,
That's awesome.
one of the main things Tony Robbins really goes into is psychology. He wants to figure out, how do you live a life of fulfillment? How do you live a life where you're just in a peak state, where you're fully energized, where you're fully alive and become the best version of you? And he spent, 30, 40 years doing this and teaching people along the way. And it became such a passion of mine to figure out, how do I live a fulfilled life? How do I get to the point where I can dance like no one's watching, sing like no one's listening, get rid of all these fears and these insecurities and what people think about me, and just be free. Be the child of God I was called to be, and lift in my spirit and overcome the ego. So
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
So that's what kind of took me on that life coaching route.
That's awesome.
Wow.
The power of the mind is definitely a huge thing. Even for us, back in the day, going through high school and stuff, we never really read any books, never like any self-help books or just like books about life. We just read what we were taught to read in school.
Yeah.
But after that, we realized one book that really got us to where we're at now. I can almost say like literally that book that we read that got us to right here doing this podcast right now is a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert
Great book.
Yes.
Love that book.
It's definitely our all-time favorite.
Yeah, all-time
That's awesome.
favorite. Literally blew our mind. We thought completely differently now about money and stuff.
Yeah, it was like a light switch. As soon as we read it, we're like,
have
wow.
money work for you instead of you work for your money.
So good.
Yeah.
We
So
never,
good.
no one taught us that during the school system or anything like that. So the power of the mind is super important. How you view the world is literally what you become.
Yes.
In a way.
So good.
So that's super cool seeing how you had such a crazy experience. You had to fill yourself up with a lot of positive energy, positive thoughts through those people that you look up to. That's crazy that you did that, and that's awesome. So that's kind of what you're doing now in a way too, right?
Absolutely.
So Colton has his own Instagram. You want to plug it in here?
Yeah, it's Daily Motivation, and my last name's Colton Daly, so it's Daly, but it's kind of a little play on words.
Cool.
So there it is.
So so it's good. Everyone quick dose of motivation to get you pumped up through the day or just the week or whatever you're going through. Definitely goes to him because I've been checking his stuff out on live. I'm like, what's Colton doing? Oh,
Yes.
that's cool.
He's always talking about you, and I'm like, who's
I'm like,
this guy?
we need to meet this guy. And then I
Yeah.
DM'd him and I'm like, yo, bro, let's meet up. He's like, yeah, bro. Just stuff happens, you know how it is. You get busy, and then we met up.
And then we're on the podcast.
Yeah. First day of meeting Colton. So that's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie, first time I got that DM, I thought you were just someone trying to sell me, and I was like,
That's how it is.
Yeah. It happens.
And that's how it is. Hey, Aaron's over there. Our pastor's over there. We're doing
What?
a podcast.
Wow.
What?
Come on over.
Come on in. Everybody.
What a guy here.
Yeah, come
Yeah.
on.
Join the
We're
party.
doing a podcast.
Speaking of one of those.
What the
Yes.
Speaking of one of the
come
great
on
people
in.
in Tampa.
This is a big deal to be here.
Yes.
How you doing?
What are y'all doing?
We're doing
What are we
good.
talking
Yeah.
about today?
Podcast.
We're doing a podcast. Literally, this is our third podcast ever.
Yeah.
Us together.
No way.
I've just met
we
him
just
today,
met
so this
through Jake.
spur of the moment.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, through
Yeah.
Jake.
Okay.
So,
So what's the focus of the
the
podcast?
focus of the podcast is just we say this thing called coconut fire, which is
Yeah.
basically just life knowledge bombs that we like to share with people.
Yes.
And we find that the best way to get those kind of knowledge bombs is through conversation.
Yeah,
Just
And
life.
just hearing people's stories.
Yeah, and just hear
that
people's
is
stories.
awesome.
Yeah.
So did y'all hear this guy's story?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, I'm telling you now.
Yeah, he just told
He's
it.
the best.
It's crazy.
He is the best.
Yeah.
No, he really is.
So I got a question for you, Pastor Aaron. My story really comes along the lines of life's always working for us.
Yeah.
Right? And the Lord works all things for the good, and although
Yes.
things, happen and things struggle, ultimately for me it revealed my purpose in life, which I was saying earlier was losing my brother, losing my father. And as I spoke at their service, it revealed to me the gift I'd be given to speak and impact lives through speaking.
Yep.
And so, is there a time in your life where you had to overcome adversity and it really showed you what your purpose was and how you got through that?
Yeah, pain always reveals our purpose. So what I'm realizing with life is that the biggest struggle you have is almost always going to be some kind of setup for a stage. So, it's the story of my life. Every setback that I've had, so I was expelled from high school a year after I got saved. So I actually got saved, my life got drastically changed by God, and it was like a Joseph story. It's like, you think, okay, God gives you this vision for your life, and it's going to be awesome, and it starts you in prison.
Yeah.
And nobody tells you that when you raise your hand in church. It's like, hey, raise your hand. I just want you to know it's probably going to get way worse before it gets better.
Yes.
That's the truth, isn't it?
But
Yeah, nobody
They're
does.
good.
Nobody says that.
Nobody says it. No, and I don't say it either. And I say it every Sunday. So, but I went through a major prison season where you're sitting there and you're struggling. And I went through. I was depressed. And I was like, "Where's God?" I thought all this stuff was going to happen. But long story short, I was expelled. Because of that, I had to go to a local public school, had no friends, didn't know anything like it. So my senior year, I did a year of dual enrollment. Would have never done that. I was at another school where I would have been doing normal classes. Graduated from college a year early. On the day of my graduation, the guy comes up to me and says, I have an opportunity to open it up today in Sri Lanka to be a missionary.
Wow.
So I look back on it and go, I would have never been able to go as a missionary.
Yeah.
If I wasn't expelled. It's the domino effect, and that's where you can look back in Genesis 50, I think it is, where where Joseph tells his brothers, what you meant for bad, God turned around for the good. So my platform I'm standing on every single Sunday is the fruit of a terrible season in my life. I think we're all the products of the pain that we've been through. So now, here's the best phrase I'm using recently, is that we live life forward, but we understand life backwards.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so just get this.
Wow.
So
That was so good.
it's a new way of looking at life.
Yeah.
So, because I wish I understood life forward, because then you would never stress, you never have anxiety, because you just don't understand first. So we're moving this way, but we get it this way. So we look back on your pain and you go, as much as it sucks, it makes sense.
Yes.
It was terrible, but I realized how God's used it.
Yeah.
So here's my challenge to people now. Since we're living life forward and we understand it backwards, trust God the same way you understand it backwards while you're living forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So right now I'm
That
dealing
is so
with
good.
massive issues, not in just facility issues, and our next step as a church is $20 million. We don't have a plan for that. So, but I realize everything he did in the past. If I stop just living for, but remember things backwards, I'm going to remember he's got to take care of. So
I think that's what's so amazing about having faith is to know that the future is going to be great. That the Lord does work all things for the good. And you see throughout the Bible, like every story people had, all these people, they all struggled. King David has his struggles of what he fell into. You have Moses having his troubles of what he fell into. Joseph having his struggles. But again, God took them from where they are to where they're called to be, and they end up serving generations. And we're still talking about them 25 years, 100 years later.
And that's the mission statement of our church, by the way. I like that.
It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
I plug that in there.
A setup is a setback, or a setback's just a setup for a comeback, man.
I love it.
Yes.
Anyway, I wish I could stay with you guys.
Yes,
I will
serious.
watch this, but I've got to take off for our next meeting.
course.
Good to see you guys. Watch you guys. Good to see y'all.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Crazy.
What are the
That
chances
was
of that?
Wow,
Wow,
for
what a blessing.
real, dude. I'm telling you, man. God works in crazy ways.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he
It's
does.
wild. So that's crazy.
They sent me the strap video.
Yeah, that's me. Wow, I'm recognized.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
That's so
so
cool.
Colton's super famous, bro. He's gonna be on the movies.
Yes.
You already know it.
Man, it's just crazy to watch life unfold.
Bro,
Like, as
So
like,
real.
Like, what were the chances that we chose that spot to
Yeah.
do? Well, oh my gosh.
what are the chances that I meet you today? I came to
Right?
see Jake. I didn't know you guys. were
Yeah.
here.
No,
And now we're doing a podcast
Yes,
here.
We actually
And
got
now he's
this
on
on camera,
podcast.
bro.
Yes.
That's crazy.
And just to give you guys a little background, Pastor Aaron is the pastor of Radiant Church, the
Yes.
13th fastest growing church in the nation here in South Florida, and just an incredible place. And God is just using that man and using that church to do wonderful things.
Yes.
Wonderful things.
Yeah, one thing that we've seen in our own business is the power of faith is crazy. We would not be where we are today without God. Dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy how he
Sometimes
works.
we just stop and we're like,
Literally,
okay, I see
think
you.
about this whole season. Right now, we could be doing anything. It's a Wednesday. What time is it? It's midday. I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah.
We could be doing anything, working at a desk job, anything. But we're here right now together, just appreciating this moment,
Yeah.
And to that for us, that's a win already.
I mean, what incredible testimonies that all of us have, as entrepreneurs, because we all had our desk jobs, we all had our day jobs, we were living a life that ultimately wasn't really fulfilling us. And then, you two happen to find your calling and really being diligent and finding your faith in what you're called to do. And the same thing with me. And what I've noticed is as you begin to walk in faith, as you begin to walk in purpose, finding your gifts, it's just amazing how the Lord will just open doors for you and open opportunities for you and bring people into your life to promote the vision that you have, that dream, right? And continue to bring people in your life like Aaron. And for example, he was talking about the bumper that they're doing for this weekend at church. It's I just started making these Instagram videos, stepping out in faith, being willing to show my gifts and not care about what people think about me anymore. And then people are reaching out to me. I'm creating friendships and relationships. The church asked me if I'd be willing to do their church bumper. You know, now I have 3,000 people every weekend for 4 weeks seeing my face on screen, and it's just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is unbelievable how this continues to work out.
It really is, man. Like, you can't even put it into words, man. You're just like, you just gotta look back. You're like, yep, that's
this makes sense.
Yeah.
Now this makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. I don't even know what else to say. That just blew my mind.
That was great.
That whole thing was crazy. So yeah.
I mean, if there's anything else I would like to say, and I think it's a message because as you guys found your gifts, what joy has that brought to your life?
He's podcasting us now.
Oh, what joy.
What joy. Like,
indescribable joy.
Say it one more time.
So let me try to rephrase this. Like, you guys had your job, you know, living a life. It wasn't a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Right. So you were at the will of somebody else's hours. They were telling you what you have to do, when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can vacation, when you can go to lunch.
Yes.
And living a life just enslaved by, you know, society's standards of what a job is, you know.
Yeah.
But you broke out of that.
Yeah.
You broke out of that. So now that you get to live a life on your terms and create your schedule and do something you love. Wow, what has that done for you spiritually and emotionally?
It's just crazy. It really just
emotionally. Honestly, it's been a roller coaster.
It really has
It's been a roller coaster.
Welcome to being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
There's literally been days where we're like, we do not have enough for rent, and rent is due tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, literally.
Or rent was due yesterday.
Yeah. It's crazy, but like somehow
God provides.
Every month,
it just happens. We're like, wow, like this is crazy.
Yeah.
And then we met Jake, like through a crazy thing we met. Every person that we meet is just crazy. Like you can't even believe it. And one way that we kind of find ourselves doing now is always trying to give back as much as we can.
Yeah.
So we actually joined the Radiant Creative team, so we're helping with the media
awesome
too.
Shout out to Juan, by the way.
Yeah,
the creative director.
Juan.
What a great guy. He's
So he's awesome. We're learning through him. Just like we're excited to get to know him more. And because like right now, literally those cameras aren't even like ours, dude. They're like it's kind of crazy to say. Like we never actually said it like in a bike like ever, but those cameras are from God, dude, in a way.
None of this is ours, man.
None of this, it's not ours. So we're just using it to push his message.
Yeah.
And we don't really say it straightforward like that. We kind of try to keep it incognito and like kind of underline and promote community over competition, make friends, meet people like that. But literally, we'll just be speaking with it.
Bring more people in.
But that's literally what it is. And like, I think this is like a sign that we just need to be straight up and be like, "This is what we're doing, guys."
Right.
But that's crazy.
That's amazing, man. And just like the scripture says, like give and it will be given to you.
Yes.
Right? You reap what you sow. And you know, no matter what you want to call it, the law of attraction, like as you begin to give yourself out there, it comes back tenfold.
It definitely
right?
does.
It's incredible. And a quote I really love, and I think for people out there trying to find their purpose and trying to find their calling is don't aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference.
Yes.
Right? How can you use your gifts to benefit the world? What is the legacy you want to leave?
Yeah.
Right? When you're done, your time's up on this planet, what will they say about you?
Yeah.
Right? When you have your tombstone and you have the first date and the last date and there's that little dash, what does that dash mean?
Yes.
You know, what did you do in that lifetime?
Yeah, that's important.
You know, so for anybody out there trying to find their purpose, you know, it's like I would start with what is your gifts? What are the gifts that you've been given? And you're like, well, I don't know my gifts. Well, let me ask you, what is something you do so well with the least amount of effort?
Yes.
You know, when people call you on the phone, like for me, they're like, hey man, I'm just down, man, I'm depressed. I need you to hype me up. And like I'm the person I think of.
You will be like the perfect hype man for
sure.
literally
Like, right?
anything.
So it's like I begin to realize
Yeah.
that. And there's nothing that fires me up more. There's nothing that makes me feel more alive than to watch somebody become who they truly are and to start to find their purpose, to find their gifts and walk in that.
That's true.
And so,
That's crazy.
man, I'm glad that you guys have found that and I get to share that with you guys.
That's awesome, man. So, Colton, one thing that we do like to ask our guests is, what is one thing that you're currently struggling with? Because life is crazy. It's freaking hard.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out as we go. What is one thing that you're struggling now? And what's one thing that you would like help with?
Yeah.
So that way you can share it to the universe and someone might come and say, hey, I can help you out with that.
Yeah. You know, I think it's primarily is just continuing to have faith and be patient. Be patient, right? You know, one scripture I really love is don't despise the day of new beginnings, for the Lord loves to see the work begin.
Yeah.
Right? To just know where I am, to know that good things are coming and continue to be faithful with the little and let him know that he can trust me with the little and he'll trust me with a lot, you know? And so just continue to be patient, know that my time is coming and to just continue to be diligent. And so as far as that, it's being patient, but as far as being more practical about it, it's time management.
Yes.
You know, as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of time, and you know, to be diligent with your schedule and your time to really focus on what you need to do and prioritize, because we can waste time. I am the best of the best at procrastination. If there's a job out there, if there's a job for being a professional procrastinator, hit me up. Daily Motivation.
You are talking to the queen.
Yeah.
Queen.
Yeah, so just prioritize. Like we were talking about earlier, you know, I want to do it all. You know, as an entrepreneur, you have to wear so many hats. So it's like, I love making the videos, but that means I got to learn how to use these cameras. I got to learn how to video it. I got to learn how to use the software. I got to learn how to speak. So it's like,
learn how to market it. Right?
Yes, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what are my gifts? What do I need to double down on and outsource the rest? So just trying to navigate that terrain is in. It's a journey.
It's all about building your squad, man. It really is. It's like, Jake is good at marketing. We're not. We're good at making stuff. He's really not.
And
so
we're not good at marketing.
Yeah. So like that's how we can like.
Yeah, but you see how like the Lord will bring these people into your life. He's brought the Jake into your life, you know. And it's happened to me. He's brought you guys into my life. He's brought Jake into my life. He's brought, you know, I have a mastermind group that has everyone has their own gifts.
Yeah.
So just really surrounding yourself with people who are just incredible people who all have their own gifts. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
You know, if you walk with the wise, inevitably you're going to become wise.
Yeah.
That's good.
Wow.
So
awesome.
what are some things that you would suggest to some people? Because like when you're down and you're feeling sad, it's hard to kind of try to not focus on your own problems. It's really easy. So like, what are some things to avoid those negative thoughts that you kind of like?
Also, once you like get all this motivation, how do you help people morph it into action?
Yes.
Because some people just feed off motivation and don't do anything with it.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, that's the thing about motivation. It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Right? You know, David Goggins, I don't know if you've ever heard of his story. He's a U.S. Navy SEAL. If you haven't heard of David Goggins, YouTube him. He's got a Joe Rogan podcast. He's got his own podcast. This guy is probably, excuse my language, the most badass person on the planet. No doubt about it. The adversity he has come through and how he has trained his mind. And what he says is motivation, it's crap. It comes and goes. But he says when you're driven, anything in front of you will be destroyed. So first and foremost, it's have a vision.
Yes.
Have a vision, right? The Bible says without a vision, the people perish, right? And so what that means is like when there's nothing that we're striving towards or attaining to come after, we have nothing to look forward to, nothing we're working after. Yeah. So life becomes such a push and such a grind. We're like trudging our way through life, carrying a backpack of all this crap.
Yes.
But you know, one thing, when you have that vision, when you know where you want to go, when you find your purpose in life, it starts to pull you. You know, one of the things I feel like the Lord spoke to me in this way, and how I literally had a vision about this, about purpose, and I created a video on it, is have you ever been to an airport and you know how they have like those really long escalators? They're horizontal.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Because the terminals are like 200, 300 yards.
Yeah.
Right? And so what was spoken to me is like, you don't have to take that. You can walk, you can carry your heavy suitcase, and you can just take the hard way.
Yeah.
But I really feel like when you find your purpose, when you have that vision, it's like stepping on that escalator in life. Life begins to pull you, right? It's not so hard. You don't have to carry your suitcase. You put it right next to you, and life is pulling you. And it becomes a joy and something to wake up and look forward to and motivate you every day.
Wow, that's such a good analogy.
Yes. So I think the most important thing is having a vision, right? And making it plain and really know where you're going in life.
For sure. Hey, well, I'm already out of questions.
That was so much knowledge.
That was a lot.
I do have one last thing I want to mention,
Right,
because you were saying like, we were talking about how do you, it's self-talk, right? How do you
Yes.
find that motivation? How do you navigate the thoughts in your head? This is the key to enlightenment, right? When you hear someone that's awake, that they're enlightened, it really comes down to, it's called being self-aware.
Yeah.
Right? Mindfulness, having aware of your own thoughts.
Yeah.
What is your mind saying to you? Because a lot of times, humans spiral into depression so badly that they get to the point where they commit suicide. And it's because they're listening to this thoughts in their brain. It's telling them, you're not good enough. You're a piece of crap. You'll never be nothing. You won't make it. And I want you to question, where are these thoughts coming from? And by the way, these are not your thoughts, right? You are not your thoughts. You are the listener to your thoughts.
Yeah.
That needs to be a separation. The Bible talks about taking your thoughts captive, but you begin to come in there and put a filter up and say, that's not me, right? It's not your brain, it's the brain. The same brain that's been around for thousands of years. It's a professional at beating you up. So once you learn how to master your own mind, to master your own thoughts, take control of them. When that thought comes in there and says, you shouldn't do that, you'll fail. Hold up. That's not my thought. Have your anchors, right? I am more than good enough, right? The Lord says I am much more than good enough. I am the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath.
Yeah.
I am fearfully and wonderfully made. have your anchor thoughts that you come back to, and that thought is not mine. I can do this. I will make it. I will be successful. The Lord works all things for the good. He works all things for those who love Him. You know, so just having these anchor points and being able to take control of that. So,
Wow.
awesome.
All right, well, Colton, thank you so much.
Thank
No,
you
my
so
pleasure.
much.
This
This is crazy.
This
This
is
is literally Colton's first podcast, right? It's your
Yes.
First
ever.
podcast in my life.
So like, now you gotta top that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be-
No, I think for
That's
this opportunity,
Aaron.
this is just something I've always looked forward to, and you just created the platform for it, right? You've inspired me to continue to do this, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm super
Right?
energized.
I
It's really
know.
just like a
Super
Me too.
hyped
cover-up.
right
That's
now.
Oh
what
my
I'm saying.
gosh.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
Right? And I just, earlier you're like, how do you motivate the world? One of my favorite quotes there is, right? And I think it's as simple as this. I'll recite the last two sentences. And
Yeah.
it says, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fears, our presence alone automatically liberates others, right? So when you get to the point where your insecurities and these thoughts that don't even exist aren't holding you back from dancing like no one's looking,
Yeah.
when you're able to go out there and just be free and just get on camera and be fully who you are, that your presence alone is automatically inspiring and giving someone else permission to do the same.
Wow.
And when you become liberated of all that junk that society tries to keep you in this box,
Yep.
when you're liberated from your own fears,
Yes.
right, your presence automatically liberates others.
Wow.
That is the. All
Yes.
right, well, Colton.
Don't
thank
get me started. I'll be here all day.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that
you
was
so
so
much,
good.
man.
That was
That's
so
gonna be
good.
a wrap for this podcast.
Yes.
Super pumped up. That was crazy.
I know.
Like, wow. I don't even know. Just God.
What
That's
is
all
life?
you know.
Yeah, just God.
Just God.
But
Yeah.
God. That's all it is.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we'll see you on the next episode of
Yes.
this podcast. And yeah, take it easy.
Peace.
Thank you.
Before we end this podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to EV47. He's the one that made the beat for the beginning and end of this podcast. So you should definitely check him out because he's dope. And yeah, peace.
Yes.